Picture a tree growing at the edge of a cliff. Wind comes from the ocean. The trunk bends, but the roots hold. Rain soaks the bark. Sun dries it again. The tree does not decide which weather to prefer. It stands in all of it, receiving what comes, releasing what goes. Equanimity is sometimes called the ground of all other practice. It is not indifference. It is not coldness. It is the capacity to remain present when conditions change, to meet what arises without tipping into grasping or pushing away. The tree does not cling to sunshine. It does not fight the storm. It allows each season to pass through. You have felt this steadiness before, even if you did not name it. Perhaps you were sitting with someone in pain, and there was nothing you could fix, but you stayed. You did not collapse into their suffering. You did not harden against it. You were simply there, breathing beside them. That is equanimity, not detachment, not merging. A clear, kind presence that does not waver. Most of us spend our days leaning. We lean toward what feels good, trying to keep it close. We lean away from what feels bad, bracing against it. This leaning is exhausting. It keeps the mind tight, the body ready to react. Equanimity is what happens when you stop leaning. You let yourself stand upright in the center of your own experience. The Buddha spoke of equanimity as one of the four immeasurables, alongside loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. It is the quality that allows the other three to remain balanced. Without equanimity, loving kindness can become possessive. Compassion can turn into overwhelm. Joy for others can twist into envy when their happiness fades. Equanimity holds the center. It allows you to care deeply without being swept away. This does not mean you stop feeling. The tree still feels the wind. Its branches still move, but the roots remain anchored. You can feel sadness without becoming sadness. You can feel anger without letting it consume the whole field of awareness. The feeling arises, moves through, and eventually dissolves. Equanimity is the part of you that watches this process without interference. In Pali, the word is apakha. It means to look over, to observe with balance. Not looking down, not looking away, just looking with a steady gaze. The image is not of someone who has shut the door to life. It is someone standing at a high window, able to see the whole landscape. The storms are still visible, the beauty is still visible, but there is space around both. You might notice, as you listen now, that your breath is moving without your effort. It comes in, it goes out. You do not have to make it happen. This is a small taste of equanimity. The body already knows how to receive and release. The mind can learn the same rhythm. When you sit quietly, thoughts will come. Some thoughts feel pleasant. You might want to follow them, to stretch them out, to live inside them a little longer. Other thoughts feel uncomfortable. You might want to push them away, to distract yourself, to think about something else. Equanimity is the quality that lets you do neither. You let the thought appear. You notice its texture, its tone. You do not feed it. You do not fight it. It passes the way clouds pass, and you are still here. The tree at the cliff's edge does not become the wind. It feels the wind fully and remains itself. This is what practice offers. Not a life without difficulty, not a mind that never reacts, but a growing capacity to return to center again and again, even when the ground is shaking. You can begin right now, wherever you are. You do not need to be calm to practice equanimity. You only need to notice what is happening. Is there tension in your shoulders? Let your attention rest there without trying to fix it. Is there a sound in the room? Let it come and go without labeling it as good or bad. Is there a thought circling? Watch it move without climbing aboard. Equanimity grows slowly. It is not a switch you flip. It is more like a path you walk, and each time you return to it, the ground becomes a little more familiar. You learn where the roots are. You learn how to stand when the wind picks up. You are standing on something right now. Your body knows this. The floor, the chair, the bed, whatever meets you from below has been holding you the entire time, but the mind forgets. It reaches forward into what might happen. It leans back into what already did. And in that reaching, that leaning, the body loses track of what has never once let it fall. Equanimity is not something you build. It is what remains when you stop pretending you are not already held. The Buddha spoke of the mountain. Wind comes from every direction. Praise arrives and blame follows close behind. The mountain does not lean toward one or brace against the other. It stands where it has always stood. Not because it is strong in the way we think of strength, muscular, effortful, clenched, but because it rests on something deeper than weather. You are not a mountain, but you are like the tree rooted in earth, bending when the wind comes, flexing at the trunk and branches, moving with what moves through you. The roots do not argue with the storm. They do not try to hold the tree perfectly still. They simply go deep enough that the tree can sway without being torn away. Most of the time, we think equanimity means not feeling. We imagine it as a kind of numbness, a flatness where nothing touches us. But that is not steadiness, that is bracing. And bracing is exhausting. It takes everything you have to hold yourself rigid against the wind. What the tree knows is this: you can move and still be rooted. When praise comes, the mind lifts. When blame comes, it contracts. This is not wrong. This is weather. The problem is not that the mind moves. The problem is that in the movement, we forget what holds us. We think the praise is the ground. We think the blame will break us. We lose track of the fact that we are standing on something that was here before the praise and will remain after the blame has passed. You do not need to become unmoved. You need to remember what you are already standing on. The practice is very simple. 3 times today, notice the moment your body is fully supported. Not as an idea, as a felt fact. Sitting in the chair, feel where the chair meets you. Standing in the kitchen, feel the floor pressing up into your feet. Lying down at night, feel the bed receiving the weight you have been carrying all day. This is not metaphor. This is direct. The body is always in contact with what holds it, but attention wanders. It goes into the story of what someone said. It rehearses what you will say back. It replays the moment you stumbled, the moment you shone, the moment you were seen or overlooked. And in that wandering, the body becomes a ghost. You stop feeling where you are. When you bring attention back to the place where you are held, something shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the wind becomes just wind again. The tree rooted in earth does not stop bending. It bends fully, freely, because it knows the roots are deep. The movement is not a threat, it is just movement. Equanimity is not the absence of sensation, it is the presence of ground. You can feel hurt and still know you are standing on something solid. You can feel joy and still know it will pass, and that what holds you will not pass with it. The feelings are weather. The ground is always ground. This is why the practice is not about controlling what you feel. It is about returning to what you rest on. The chair is holding you right now. The floor has not stopped pressing up into your feet. The bed will receive you tonight the way it has every night. This is not philosophy, this is fact. When you notice this, really notice it, not as concept but as contact, the mind stops reaching so hard. It stops needing the next thing to feel secure. Because security was never in the next thing. It was always in what you are standing on. The tree bends because it is rooted. You can move through your day, through your feelings, through the praise and the blame, because you are held. You have always been held. Feel it now, just for a moment, where your body meets what supports it, not as a task, just as a fact. This is equanimity, not far away, not later. Right here in the simple meeting of body and ground. You are sitting somewhere right now, and beneath the surface of stillness, something is moving. Not your body, not even your thoughts exactly. It is more like a tilt, a lean. You are leaning towards something you want and pulling back from something you do not. This happens so quietly that you might not notice it at all. But it is there, it is always there. A compass needle swings wildly when you first hold it in your hand. It jerks left, then right, searching for north. It does not settle immediately. It moves because it must. The pull is invisible, but the needle obeys. Watch it long enough and you see that the swinging is not random. It is responding to something deeper than itself. Your mind does this too. It swings toward pleasure. It swings away from pain. The movement feels urgent, like truth. But it is not truth. It is craving and aversion, the two hands that bind us. See them clearly and they loosen. Most of the time, we do not see them. We see only the object, the thing we want, the thing we fear. We think the problem is out there, in the world, in what we lack or what threatens us. But the problem is in the leaning itself, the tilt, the way we move toward and away without ever pausing to notice the movement. Craving does not feel like craving. It feels like need, like clarity, like knowing what is right. You want the conversation to go a certain way, and when it does not, you feel the tightness in your chest. You want the day to be easier, and when it is not, you feel the frustration rise. You want someone to understand you, and when they do not, you feel the ache of being unseen. These are not small things, they matter. But beneath each one is the same motion. The lean, the pull, the quiet insistence that things should be other than they are. Aversion works the same way. It does not announce itself, it hides in reasonable thoughts. You avoid the difficult email because you are busy. You turn away from the uncomfortable feeling because you have things to do. You dismiss the person who irritates you because they are not worth your time. All of this sounds sensible, but underneath, the compass needle is swinging. You are pulling away, you are resisting, and the resistance itself becomes the problem. The teaching is simple. Craving and aversion are the two hands that bind us. See them clearly and they loosen, but seeing them is not easy. They move too fast. They disguise themselves as preferences, as priorities, as common sense. You have to slow down to catch them. You have to look not at what you want or fear, but at the wanting and fearing themselves. This is where the practice begins. Not later, not after you understand more. Right now, name one thing you are leaning toward. Just one. It does not have to be large. Maybe you are leaning toward the end of this day. Maybe you are leaning toward a moment of quiet. Maybe you are leaning toward being understood by someone who does not yet see you. Feel the lean. Notice how it pulls your attention forward, away from here. Now name one thing you are pulling away from. Again, just one. Maybe you are pulling away from a task you do not want to face. Maybe you are pulling away from a feeling that sits heavy in your body. Maybe you are pulling away from the possibility of being wrong. Feel the pull. Notice how it tightens something in you, how it creates distance between you and what is. The compass needle swings because it is trying to find north. But north does not move, the needle moves. The world is still, your mind is what swings, and when you see this, something shifts, not immediately, not all at once, but slowly, the way a needle settles when the hand holding it stops shaking. You do not have to stop wanting things. You do not have to stop avoiding pain. This is not about becoming blank or indifferent. It is about seeing the movement itself, the lean, the tilt, the way craving and aversion pull you out of balance without you noticing. When you see them, they do not disappear, but they loosen. They stop feeling like commands. They become what they are, movements of mind, patterns, not truth. This is equanimity. Not the absence of feeling, but the absence of the lean. You can feel everything and still stand steady. You can want and not be ruled by wanting. You can dislike and not be controlled by dislike. The needle still moves, but you are no longer the needle. You are the stillness beneath it, the space in which the swinging happens. Sit with this. Name the lean. Name the pull. Do not try to fix them. Do not try to let them go. Just see them. Watch the way they move. Watch the way they settle when you stop feeding them with belief. This is the practice. This is how the hands loosen. You sit down and try to be calm. You try to let things pass. You try not to react. You try to hold steady. And all that trying feels like standing in the middle of a storm, gripping a post with both hands, teeth clenched, determined not to be moved. But breath has never tried. It comes in, it goes out. It meets whatever is here. A tight chest, a soft belly, anxiety humming in the throat, contentment settling in the shoulders. Breath touches all of it and continues, no pause to decide, no bracing, no preference. The tide comes in and touches the shore. It does not ask what is there, smooth stones or broken shells, warm sand or cold mud. The water arrives, touches, and withdraws. It does not linger over what it likes. It does not recoil from what it dislikes. It simply moves according to its nature. This is what equanimity actually is. Not a state you build, not a feeling you cultivate, a rhythm already happening. You have been breathing through every moment of your life, through joy and through grief. through boredom and through shock. Through the best news you ever received and the worst, breath did not stop to celebrate. It did not stop to protest. It kept its own time. We think equanimity is something we add to experience, a layer of calm we place over the chaos, a kind of spiritual armor. But breath shows us something else. Equanimity is what remains when we stop adding. The tide goes out and does not cling to the shore. It does not say, "I liked it better when I was touching the sand." It does not resist the pull of the moon. It moves. It returns. It moves again. You can sit for 3 minutes and watch this. Not as an idea, as a fact. Sit wherever you are, let your hands rest. You do not need to be still. You do not need to be peaceful. You only need to notice breath. It comes in. Maybe the inhale is smooth. Maybe it catches halfway. Maybe there is tightness. Maybe there is ease. Breath receives it. It does not stop. It does not correct. It finishes the inhale and begins the exhale. The exhale might be long. It might be short. It might tremble. It might sigh. Breath allows it. The rhythm continues. Now notice what else is here. A thought about something you said yesterday. A sensation in your lower back. The sound of a car passing. Breath does not turn toward these things. It does not turn away. It keeps moving. This is not effort. This is permission. You do not have to like what is happening. You do not have to fix it. You do not have to make it mean something. You can let breath show you how to meet it without preference. The tide does not improve the shore. It does not clean it or bless it. It touches what is there, and the touching is enough. Discomfort arises, a familiar ache, a restless thought, the urge to shift or stop or check the time. Breath continues, in and out. The discomfort does not change the rhythm. The rhythm does not erase the discomfort. They exist together. This is the whole teaching. Breathing in, breathing out. No preference. You might feel a softening. You might not. Equanimity is not a feeling of softness. It is the absence of the need to make things other than they are. Breath has been practicing this since you were born. It has never needed you to approve of the moment. It has never waited for conditions to improve. Comfort comes. Breath receives it. Discomfort comes. Breath receives it. The receiving is the same. You do not have to become the tide. You do not have to become the breath. You only have to stop pretending you are separate from this rhythm. You are already breathing. You are already touching each moment and releasing it. You have always been doing this. Sit a little longer. Let 3 minutes become 4. Let 4 become 5. Not because you are trying to achieve equanimity, because breath is already demonstrating it, and you are finally willing to notice. The rhythm does not promise peace. It does not promise clarity. It promises nothing. It simply continues. And in that continuation, there is a steadiness that was never built and cannot be broken. You are standing in the middle of everything. You always have been. Breath knows this. It has never looked for the edge. You hold water in your hands and it rests there, cool and still. Then something tightens. A thought arrives that you might lose it. Your fingers curl inward and the water runs between them faster than before. The thing you wanted to keep is gone because of the keeping. This is how we meet what we love. We find something that steadies us. A person, a feeling, a version of ourselves we finally like. And immediately we begin to hold it too tightly. Not because we're foolish. Because we've learned that things leave. And so the grip becomes our strategy. If I can just hold on hard enough, we think, maybe this one will stay. But the Buddha said something else. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Not turns away from life, turns away from suffering. The suffering that comes from demanding that water stay in your hands. Conditioned things means everything that arises because of causes. Your body, your thoughts, the weather, the face you see in the mirror, the way your friend laughs, the feeling of being safe, all of it assembled from conditions. And when those conditions shift, the thing shifts too. It has no choice. This isn't a flaw in the design. This is the design. We know this already. We've watched leaves fall and milk spoil and conversations end. We've seen people change their minds and seasons turn and streets we used to know get torn down and rebuilt. But knowing it in theory is not the same as seeing it with wisdom. Wisdom here doesn't mean understanding. It means seeing so clearly that the old reflects. The one that reaches out to freeze things in place loses its power. The shaking we feel isn't coming from the world. The world is just moving the way it always moves. The shaking comes from the gap between what's happening and what we're demanding should happen. That gap is where the grip lies. And the tighter the grip, the more violent the shaking. You can feel this in your own hands right now. Make a fist. Hold it tight. Notice what happens in your forearm, your shoulder, your jaw. The tension spreads. It doesn't stay local. Now open your hand. Let it rest. The steadiness you were looking for wasn't in the gripping. It was in the release. Equanimity is sometimes mistaken for not caring, for becoming cold or distant or numb. But that's not what it is. You can love someone and also see that they're changing. You can value your health and also see that this body is aging. You can feel joy and also know it won't last forever. The knowing doesn't erase the love. It just stops the love from turning into a fist. When you hold water loosely in your hands, it stays longer, it rests in the cup of your palms. You can feel its coolness. You can watch the light move across its surface. And when it finally spills or evaporates, as it will, your hands are still open, still able to receive the next thing. This isn't about training yourself to let go. It's about seeing what's already letting go. Right now, without your permission, your breath is leaving your body. Cells are dying and being replaced. The light in the room is shifting as the sun moves. Your thoughts are appearing and dissolving faster than you can count them. Everything is already in motion. The question is whether you'll keep trying to stop it, or whether you'll learn to stand steady inside the motion itself. Notice one small thing that has already changed since you woke up this morning. Not something dramatic, something quiet. Maybe the temperature of your coffee. Maybe the angle of the light. Maybe the tightness in your shoulders has softened, or the thought that was so loud an hour ago has faded into the background. Just one thing. Let yourself see it clearly. It was one way, now it's another, and you're still here, still breathing, still able to notice. This is the practice, not once but again and again, seeing what has already changed, not to become resigned to loss, but to stop being surprised by it, to stop bracing against it. Because the bracing is what hurts. The change itself is just change. When you see this enough times, something shifts, not all at once, but gradually. The reflex to grip loosens. You start to meet each moment with your hands already open. Not because you've stopped caring, because you've stopped confusing love with control. You've stopped mistaking steadiness for stillness. And you've started to find your balance, not by holding the world in place, but by moving with it. By letting it be what it is, impermanent, flowing, already gone and always arriving. And in that flowing steady, something happens and we move. The thought arrives and we speak. The feeling rises and we act. This is how most of our days unfold, one reaction flowing into the next, until we forget there was ever a choice at all. But watch a summer storm approach across an open field. The lightning splits the sky, bright and sudden. Then nothing. Silence holds the air. You count without meaning to 1, 2, 3. Then the thunder rolls through, deep and slow, arriving from the same place the light came from. The pause between lightning and thunder tells you how far away the storm really is. Distance reveals itself in that gap. Between what happens to you and what you do about it, there is also a gap. Most of us have never noticed it. We believe the lightning and thunder are one event. That reaction must follow stimulus the way thunder follows light, instant and automatic. But the truth is quieter than that. There is always space. There is always a moment when nothing has been decided yet. This is where equanimity lives. Not in the absence of storms, but in the pause before the sound arrives. You do not need to go looking for this space. It is already there. Someone says something that lands wrong in your chest. The tightness comes first, then the heat, then the words forming in your throat, ready to defend or correct or push back. All of this happens so fast it feels like a single motion. But if you slow it down, if you let yourself feel the sequence, you will notice the gap. Between the tightness and the heat, there is a breath. Between the heat and the words, there is another. The teaching says that between stimulus and response lies freedom. In that space, the wise find peace, not because they are unmoved by what happens, but because they have learned to stand in the pause. They have learned that the gap is not emptiness. It is possibility. When you feel irritation rise today, try this. Count 3 breaths before you respond. Not as a rule to follow, but as a way to feel the distance between what happened and what you will do about it. The first breath is just noticing. You feel the pull to react, the familiar shape of it in your body. The second breath is softer. The urgency starts to loosen. By the third breath, you are standing in the space the wise ones found. You are free to choose. This is not about controlling your feelings. The irritation will still be there. The heat, the tightness, the story your mind is already telling about what just happened. None of that disappears. But something shifts when you stop treating reaction as inevitable. The lightning has already flashed. You have seen it. But the thunder has not yet rolled through. You are standing in the pause, and in that pause, you are not compelled. Equanimity is not indifference. It is not the cold distance of someone who has stopped caring. It is the warm steadiness of someone who has learned to wait, to feel everything and still choose what comes next. Think of the gap between lightning and thunder again. The farther away the storm, the longer the pause. If the storm is right above you, the sound comes almost instantly. There is no time to count. But if the storm is miles away, you can stand in the silence and know you are safe. You can watch without flinching. When you practice counting 3 breaths, you are learning to create distance. Not distance from the event itself, but distance from the automatic response. You are teaching yourself that you do not have to be right on top of the storm. You can stand a little farther back and still see everything clearly. This is not a trick to make you calmer. It is a way of recognizing what has always been true. The space was always there. The freedom was always available. You just moved too fast to notice it. So today, when something irritates you, when the familiar heat rises and the words start forming, pause. Count 1 breath. Feel the tightness. Count another breath. Feel the story your mind is building. Count a third breath. Notice that you are still here, still whole, and nothing has been lost by waiting. The thunder will come. It always does. But you do not have to be swept up in it. You can stand steady in the middle of everything, feeling the storm and choosing your response. That steadiness is not something you build. It is something you uncover, breath by breath, in the space that was always there. There is a way we hold the people we love that feels like devotion but works more like fear. We wrap our hands around them. We pull them close. We think this is how love proves itself, through the strength of our grip, through the refusal to let go. And then we wonder why our arms ache, why the connection itself begins to feel like effort. The confusion runs deep. We believe that caring deeply means holding tightly, that if we loosen our grasp, we will lose what matters. So we clench, we monitor, we try to keep everything exactly as it is, as if love were a matter of control rather than presence. But notice what happens in the body when you hold something too tightly. The hand cramps, the fingers go numb. What you meant to protect begins to suffer from the very force of your protection. This is not a failure of love. This is a misunderstanding of what love requires. Imagine cupping a butterfly in your palm. If you close your hand completely, you crush it. If you open your hand too far, it may fly away before it is ready. But there is a third way. You can hold your hand steady, curved just enough to offer shelter, open enough that the butterfly can rest without feeling trapped. This is the shape of equanimity, close enough to care, open enough to let things be as they are. The teaching is simple, though the practice takes time. Love with hands open. This is how the heart stays soft and the mind stays clear. Not because you care less, but because you understand that clinging and caring are not the same thing. One is an act of presence, the other is an act of fear. You can test this right now. Think of someone you love. Picture their face. Feel the warmth that rises when you bring them to mind. Now notice how you hold them in your thoughts. Are your hands open or closed? Are you imagining them as they are or as you need them to be? Are you resting with them, or are you already bracing against the possibility of loss? Try this. Imagine holding them with open hands instead of closed fists, not pushing them away, not pulling them toward you, just letting them rest in the space of your care, free to be exactly who they are in this moment. Notice what shifts. Notice if the love feels smaller or if it actually has more room to breathe. This is not detachment in the sense of coldness. It is not distance. It is the opposite. When you stop gripping, you can finally feel the texture of what you are holding. When you stop trying to freeze the moment, you can actually be in it. The butterfly rests more easily in an open hand than in a closed one. And so does everyone you love. Equanimity does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop confusing care with control. You stop treating impermanence as a problem to solve. You allow people to change, to struggle, to make their own choices, and you stay present through all of it. Not because you have given up, but because you have learned to love without the weight of ownership. Sit with this for a moment. Bring that person back to mind. Feel the care you have for them. Now imagine that care as something you offer rather than something you enforce. Imagine it as a shelter they can step into or step out of freely. Notice if your chest softens. Notice if the breath moves more easily. This is the practice. Not once, but again and again. Each time you notice yourself tightening around a person, a plan, an outcome, you return to the image of the open hand. You do not shame yourself for the grip. You simply notice it, and you release, not because you care less, but because you understand that this is how care sustains itself. The heart that clenches will eventually tire. The heart that stays open can keep loving without breaking. Equanimity is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of balance. It is standing steady in the middle of everything, the joy, the sorrow, the uncertainty, and not needing it to be different than it is. When you hold someone with open hands, you are not letting them go, you are letting them be. And in that space, both of you can breathe. The care remains, the connection remains, but the suffering that comes from grasping begins to fall away. This is when you feel it, that care and non-attachment are not opposites. They are the same movement, the same steady hand, curved just enough to shelter, open enough to let life rest freely in your palm. We spend so much of our lives looking for the room where nothing will disturb us. A place where the noise stops, where people don't ask anything, where thoughts settle and the phone doesn't ring and the world pauses long enough for us to catch our breath. But that room doesn't exist. There is always movement. Always sound. Always something rising in the mind or shifting in the body. The search for a life without disturbance is the search for something that cannot be found. Equanimity is not the absence of movement. It is steadiness within the movement itself. Think of a hurricane. At the edges, everything tears and spins. Trees bend, roofs lift, the rain moves sideways. But at the very center, there is the eye. The air is still. The sky might even be clear. The hurricane has not stopped. It is still a hurricane. But the eye does not move with the chaos around it. You are not separate from the storm of your life. You are in it. But you can find the eye. The Zen teachers say the center of the wheel turns slowly while the rim spins fast. The rim is where everything happens. The tasks, the arguments, the news. The memories that arrive without warning. The rim is loud and it never stops. But the center is always there. It does not fight the rim. It does not try to slow it down. It simply turns at its own pace, steady and unhurried. Most of us live at the rim. We think that's where we have to be. We think the speed is required. We think if we step away from the noise, we will miss something. We will fall behind. We will lose our place. But the center is not somewhere else. It is not a reward for good behavior or a prize for sitting still long enough. It is already present. It is the part of you that notices the spinning without spinning with it. When you sit quietly and close your eyes, the world does not stop. Thoughts still come. The body still shifts. Sounds still move through the room. A car passes. A door closes somewhere. Your knee aches. A memory surfaces. A worry about tomorrow. A replay of this morning. None of that is a problem. The problem is believing you must make it stop before you can be at peace. Equanimity is not control. It is not suppression. It is not the skill of shutting things out. It is the capacity to remain present while things move through you. to let the thought arrive and let it pass, to hear the sound without bracing against it, to feel the ache without building a story around it. The eye of the hurricane does not push the wind away. It simply does not move with it. You can sit for 5 minutes, just 5, not to achieve anything, not to become calm, just to notice what remains still even as everything else moves. Sit somewhere quiet if you can. If you can't, sit where you are. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Let your hands rest. You are not trying to empty your mind. You are not trying to feel a certain way. You are just noticing. A thought will come. Let it come. It will move through like a cloud. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to fix it. Just notice that it came. Notice that it moves. A sound will come. A breath. A sensation. Let them come. They are not interruptions. They are just what is happening. The rim is spinning. That is what the rim does. But notice what does not spin. Notice the awareness that sees the thought, the awareness that hears the sound, the awareness that feels the breath. That awareness does not come and go. It does not speed up when the thoughts speed up. It does not panic when the body tenses. It is the center. It is the I. It is not something you create. It is something you recognize. You have been looking for the place where nothing moves. But the place you are looking for is not a place. It is not a feeling. It is not a state you achieve and then keep. It is the part of you that remains present while everything else changes. The hurricane does not stop being a hurricane. The wheel does not stop turning. Your life does not stop moving. But the I remains still. The center remains steady, and you can return to it again and again, not because you have mastered anything, not because you have earned it, but because it is always there. It has always been there, even when you forgot. Even when the rim was so loud you couldn't hear anything else. It is there now. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence that does not waver. You watch a tightrope walker step out over the gap. The wire is thin, the air is still, and within 3 steps the body tilts. The arms swing wide, the walker wobbles, drops to one knee, catches the wire with both hands. The crowd gasps. But the walker does not fall all the way down. She grips the wire, she breathes. And then, slowly, she pulls herself back up and continues. You might think the skill is in not wobbling, that a true master would glide across without a single tremor. But if you watch long enough, you see something else. The wobble comes. It always comes. The real skill is in the return. Equanimity is often imagined as a kind of stillness that never breaks, a calm that holds no matter what arrives. We picture the meditator who does not flinch when the door slams, the person who receives bad news and remains unmoved. And we think that is the goal, to reach a place where nothing shakes us. But this is not what the Buddha pointed to. He said the path is walked step by step. Each return to balance is the whole journey, not the arrival, not the perfection, the returning. You lose your center a dozen times a day. Someone speaks to you in a sharp tone and your chest tightens. You open an email and your stomach drops. You sit down to rest, and within moments the mind is racing ahead into tomorrow or circling back to this morning. The balance tips, the body leans, the wire sways beneath you. And here is where the misunderstanding lies. You think you have failed. You think equanimity was supposed to prevent this. That if you had practiced enough, been wise enough, sat long enough, the tipping would stop. But the tipping does not stop. The wire is always moving. The wind is always present. The body is always adjusting. What changes is not the presence of imbalance. What changes is how quickly you notice and how gently you return. The tightrope walker falls to her knee again. This time she does not gasp. She does not curse the wire. She simply feels the grip in her hands, the tension in her legs, and pulls herself upward. The return is quieter now, faster. Not because she has become immune to wobbling, but because she has learned to trust the return itself. This is equanimity, not the absence of disturbance, but the practiced return to center. You sit in traffic and feel the irritation rise. The jaw clenches, grip the wheel. And then, in the space of a breath, you notice you are leaning. You are tilted. And without drama, without scolding yourself for being irritated in the first place, you soften the hands. You feel the seat beneath you. You return. That return is not a failure to be calm, it is the practice itself. The walker crosses the wire a third time. Now you see it clearly. She wobbles almost immediately. But this time the correction is so small, so fluid, that it barely registers. The arms adjust, the hips shift. The body knows the way back before the mind even names the tilt. This is what happens when you stop waiting to arrive at equanimity and start trusting the return. You begin to notice the loss of balance sooner. A tightness in the throat, a sharpness in the breath, a pulling forward or a leaning back. And because you are not ashamed of the wobble, you do not resist it. You do not add a second layer of tension by hating the first. You simply feel it and return. The teaching is simple, the path is walked step by step, not in one long unbroken stride, but in 1,000 small adjustments. Each time you notice you have leaned into craving or pulled back into aversion, and each time you return to the middle, you are walking the path. That moment is not preparation for equanimity, it is equanimity itself. So the practice is this. Notice when you lose your balance today. It will happen. The wire will sway, your body will tilt. And when it does, do not treat it as evidence that you are failing. Treat it as the moment the practice becomes real. Feel where the imbalance lies. Is it in the breath, the shoulders, the thoughts spinning faster than they need to? And then, without force, without judgment, return. Soften what has hardened, widen what has narrowed. Come back to center, not once, not as a final arrival, but again and again, the way the walker climbs back onto the wire, the way the breath returns after each exhale, the way the body finds its balance not by freezing in place, but by moving, adjusting, trusting the return. The wire is still swaying. It will always sway, but you are learning to come back, and that returning is not separate from equanimity. It is the whole path. We have been sitting with equanimity for a long time now, not chasing it, not building it, just watching what it is when the mind stops insisting that things be different than they are. You might notice that equanimity does not arrive as a reward. It is not given to you after you have done enough practice or understood enough teachings. It is already here, underneath the layers of preference and resistance. It was here before you started listening. It will be here when you stop. The steadiness we have been exploring is not a state you enter and leave. It is the ground you are always standing on, whether you notice it or not. When you are pulled by craving, the ground is still there. When you are lost in aversion, the ground remains. Equanimity is not something you achieve. It is what remains when you stop trying to push the world into a shape it will not hold. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop confusing care with control. You can act with clarity and compassion without demanding that the outcome match your hope. You can love without clinging. You can grieve without collapsing. The heart that knows equanimity is not a cold heart. It is a heart that has stopped burning itself out on what it cannot change. There is a kind of relief in this. Not the relief of escape, but the relief of honesty. You see that you have been carrying something heavy, and you realize you can set it down. Not because the world has become easier, but because you have stopped pretending it should be. What you are left with is very simple. Breath moving in and out, sensation rising and passing, sounds appearing and fading, thoughts forming and dissolving. None of it needs your permission. None of it waits for your approval. And in that, there is a strange kind of freedom. Equanimity does not protect you from pain. It does not make loss easier or fear smaller. But it changes your relationship to these things. You stop fighting the fact that they are here. You stop demanding that they leave before their time. And in that space, something softens. The mind that has touched equanimity knows how to rest in the middle of things. Not because it has transcended difficulty, but because it has learned to meet difficulty without adding more suffering on top. It sees craving as craving. It sees aversion as aversion. It does not take them personally. It does not make them into a story about who you are or what your life means. This is not detachment, this is presence. You are here, fully, without needing the moment to be other than it is. If you keep practicing, you will notice equanimity more often. Not because you have become better at it, but because you have stopped overlooking it. It is there in the pause before you react. It is there in the breath that continues whether you are happy or sad. It is there in the awareness that holds all experience without being damaged by any of it. You do not need to hold on to this teaching. You do not need to remember everything that was said. The words were only pointing. What they were pointing to is already with you. Let yourself return now to the simplest thing. The breath moving by itself. The body sitting or lying here. The quiet hum of being alive without commentary. Feel the weight of your body against what supports it. Notice the temperature of the air. Let your attention rest on the sensation of breathing, not controlling it, just noticing it. In, out, rising, falling. There is nothing you need to do with this moment. Nothing you need to fix or improve or understand. Just this. Just breath. Just presence. If your mind wanders, that is fine. Let it wander. It will come back when it is ready. You can stay here as long as you like. And when you are ready, you can move gently back into your day, or let yourself drift into sleep, or continue with another reflection if that feels right. There is no hurry. There is nowhere else you need to be. For now, just breathing. Just this.